G'day, it's Peter from Bundaberg Commercial, and it's this time of year when I start having a bit of a think about planning for the next calendar year from a business point of view. And one of the opportunities that I see for next year is the tremendous chance of doing more work in deals involving both Indians and Australian. Now, this is something that is taking me a while to work out because I botched the first couple, just couldn't make the deals over the line, and it took me a while to understand the cultural differences better and to work out some strategies to increase the success. So I'm going to share that with you today so that whether you're an Indian, whether you're an Australian, whether you're anybody who's working with Indians and Australians, you can get benefits and hopefully be more successful in what you do. The rise of Indians in business, and I'm talking about Indians from India, not from North America, let's just get that clear and upfront to start with, is a normal progression in world economics. I mean, in 1970s, that's probably the age when most of my viewers are looking to think about, that's my dad's age. The 1970s, it was the Germans who first came out, and they helped build the Kosciuszko river scheme, power scheme down there, and they brought with them things like Oktoberfest and German sausages, and we thought, yeah, that was okay as a nation, we can handle that. And then in the 80s, we had an influx of Vietnamese business people, and that was particularly from refugees who were coming through in the boat people, and that was very much an emotional time in Australia. And once again, we learnt all about spicy Vietnamese soups and that they're absolutely amazing as bakers. And yeah, Australia just assimilated another cultural breed. And then after that, we had probably the Japanese came in and they bought all our golf courses. And we thought, whoa, that's a little bit radical, but we got used to that. And they brought sushi and we enjoyed that. You see, a common theme in my life, if you want to be accepted by me, just bring some decent food over to my place. After the Japanese, we had the Americans. Oh, I love the Americans. Oh, bless their little cotton socks. So I think the Americans just brought a sense of humour with me, and hot dogs and NFL football. I love those sort of things. After the Americans, yes, you're sensing a theme that we've been to this sort of path before. We had the Chinese, and probably still in that phase of the Chinese coming through. They bought anything that was power-related, mines, and food-related. Their big pastoral companies were all sold to the Chinese, mainly as they were looking to secure their resources to help prosper China. And once again, we were all a little bit unsettled with the massive number of Chinese that were coming through. But hey, they brought a lot of wonderful things to the culture. Incredibly wise with money and numbers was something that I learned very much a lot from my Chinese friends. And I was at chess tournaments. For those who know me, I play competitive chess and I take it pretty seriously. And you play in a lot of chess tournaments, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, there's a lot of Indians here. He said they're very good at playing chess. And I thought to myself, could be, but don't look too hard because there's probably more Chinese than there are Indians currently. We got to the stage of thinking, well, maybe it's not that every Chinese person and every Indian can play chess. Maybe if it's just 1% of their population. So 1% of 4 billion is like 400 million, I think. So that's like 20 times more than every Australian. So for every one Australian chess player, you can imagine there's going to be 20 Chinese chess players. So odds are they're going to have some good ones in there. And yeah, they've actually got the previous world champion, Ding Liren, is Chinese. And the women, remember the women, my gosh, they've dominated world chess since 1991. These people can play chess, and there's a lot of them that play chess. But not to be outdone, India, which has 4.4 billion people, so they're actually 10% more populous than what China is, has had two male world champions, as in Vishy Anand. I like Vishy. He came out to Australia during the Sydney Olympics and did chess as a demonstration sport. Gotta love the passion in a guy. Dear oh dear. And also now Gukesh is the current world champion and the youngest chess player ever to win a world championship. So there's plenty of credence. But the first point that I want to make with getting to understand doing business with India and to a lesser extent China is the sheer numbers. Well, I'll share probably the first epiphany, that first moment when I understood that I didn't understand Indians in business. I was a national manager for the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, and my boss pulled me aside one day. He says, Peter, you're doing a good job, but you're just not getting on with JB, who is a fellow national manager. You two are just punching each other's buttons, and you're starting to have a negative impact on the rest of the organisation and the rest of the team. I thought, ooh, that's a bit sad. That's not exactly the plan. I admit I was having trouble with JB. And JB was another national manager in another state, so part of the problem was you just didn't have that proximity, that closeness that you can work with in regards to relationships, and you need that. So we had a virtual cup of coffee because we were thousands of kilometres apart. Australia's a big country, and I said, look, I get a bit annoyed when you put in a request and you ask me for something, and then it's just push, shove, need it done, faster. I said, I'm sorry, I admit, but my natural response, as a lot of Australians, is to just dig my heels in and be a little bit obnoxious, and I'll get to it when I get to it. So the more you push, the more I resist. So if you want something done faster, then it's probably good for you just to give me the details, let me know what you need it, and let me do it, and it'll get there faster. And that was just being open and honest. Look, I'm not fantastic. I may have been a national manager, but I had my faults, and I admit to it. But typical alpha male syndrome, whatever. It's who I am. It's the makeup I've got. And JB says, well, that doesn't work for her. And I sort of thought, okay, so, explain some more to me. And she said that, well, in India where she grew up, and she was Indian, and she only recently came to Australia. She says, if you go to the shop to just get a loaf of bread, if I was polite and just asked once and left it at that and waited to have my turn, so to speak, I'd never get that loaf of bread. I'd never get fed. And I thought, wow, this sounds like some of the stories I've heard from my friends in South Africa that had similar situation. It's just the mass of people in India means that there's never going to be enough food. There's never going to be enough property. There's never going to be enough assets. There's never going to be enough vehicles. There's never going to be enough of anything. So they've had to learn to argy and bargy and be forceful in a polite sort of way to try and get what they need to do. And it's like, bang! Oh, okay. Well, that context puts a whole different sense of meaning. So after that, we wouldn't invite each other to each other's Christmas party. We didn't quite all get on. And she still pushed and shoved as she always did, and I still did that sort of obnoxious hold back. But we had a better relationship, and I have to admit, I got things done a little bit quicker for her because I understood where it comes from. So the first message that I had was recognise the rise of India is just normal as we went through the other countries that had come through. And the second message that I have is to get an understanding of where they're coming from and the culture, and the reason for the biggest criticism that I get from Australia is that they're pushy. And hopefully now you can be like me and understand a little bit more as to why it is. It's not because they're rude, it's because they've been brought up in really a dog-eat-dog environment where they've had to fight and scruffle and work hard to get everything that they can. So let's focus on negotiating with between Indians and Australians. And the messages I have here are just as beneficial for Indians as it is for Australians. The one cultural difference that I really noticed that makes difference, and it's similar to that fast, slow, push, shove sort of type syndrome, is speed of deals. The Indians will quite often work fast to getting a deal. They'll have their ducks lined up and wait and go for it. And Australians are good. They're quite comfortable with that, but they're not generally as fast as that. But where the brakes come on is India is like a lot of Asian cultures where decisions are made by families. And I've had deals where it looks like we're ready to go. We've agreed on everything, but the Indians then have to go back to their family. That they may have to talk with family in India in regards to getting finance or getting the okay, or they talk with their brothers and sisters who are in Australia as well, because quite often deals are made as a conglomerate for the families. It's pretty similar to working with the Chinese. The Chinese are very similar and very family orientated with their businesses. And as there's a lot of Southeast Asia, Koreans is another culture that does that. Vietnamese is another culture that does that. The difference is Indians seem not to go to their family till later in the deal, whereas the other Asian cultures are at the start. So it's like a slow process all the way, and you can never talk to the decision makers, which is a thing us people from the West have been taught. Always deal with the decision makers. So you'd love to talk with the families, but no, that ain't happening. It's almost like in the old days of you can't work with the Italian families. They're not going to let you go anywhere near them. So this is an aspect that I've had to learn to accept, and I explain that to my Australian buyers and my Australian sellers who are working with Indians, and share with them, look, this is what's going to happen. It will go fast, stop, and then you just got to wait. And it's no use pushing. You just got to wait till everything comes together and it runs through there. Now, probably the biggest cause of concern between Australians and business is that the opening offer, for want of a better word, or we used to call it a gambit offer. Like you had $1 million property. Oh yeah, I'll give you $850,000 for it. Kick the can sort of stuff. See if they're desperate to sell it. Or even $930,000 is the sort of range that Australians would generally have a look at. And they'd never get the deal, but it got the discussion starting, and you'd sort of start to negotiate at work from there. The philosophy for Indians, from what I can understand as a cultural point of view, is their first offer is usually at the 30% discount mark. So if you had a $1 million business and an Indian comes up and they make their first offer at $700,000, the response for Australians, and this is a learning from my Indian friends, is like, I'm not even going to play. Like, I'm so angry, I'm so insulted, I'm not even going to be entertained with it, and I don't care if it's cash or finance or how nice they are. And they just shut up shop so hard that I need a crowbar to try and get it open again. So once again, by learning and appreciating that that's how the opening offer usually comes in from an Indian buyer, is the fact that I can then prepare my seller and explain to them, look, we've got $1 million. Expect the first one to come in at $700,000. That's just their way of doing an ambit claim. But for my Indian friends, to help you overcome that, because when you have a locked door, it's very difficult to get negotiations going. Even for a fantastic negotiator like myself, it's hard to get some clients to open up again after they've been hit with a 30% discount. What you have a look at is, for Western culture Australian, 10% is about the negotiable mark. So if you've got a $1 million property, if you must, then look around about the $850,000, because you'll find that people will go and negotiate to about that 10% mark, which in that case would be $900,000. So if you have a pitch at $850, at least you're in the ballpark. They're not going to shut you down. You go at $750 or $700, and they're just not going to play. So that's the other message I want to give you. If you have a look at doing an opening offer and you're not looking to pay the full price, and we understand in the culture that you've got of always fighting and trying to maintain everything, that you're going to be negotiating. It's all across the whole range of Asia and Arab lands. It's all about the negotiation. Western cultures, it's like, here's the price, it is what it is, why are we talking? So you need to pick up the subtle differences from there. Now, I will be a little bit controversial here. I've spoken with a lot of Aussies who are doing businesses with Indians, and there's a lot of distrust from Australians' point of view to Indians. And there's really not much evidence behind that. It's more a fact that people don't understand the Indians and may not have dealt with Indians before. So it's new. And we need to recognise that because we don't understand a situation, Don't be thinking that it's, and people are different to us. Don't be thinking that they're dishonest. I've actually found that, if anything, the Indians are probably more open and honest than most people I deal with, and that includes Australians and South Africans and other Asians and Europeans and Arabs. They all have their own cultural niches as they work in the bracket, but I found the Asians and the Indians in particular to be open and honest. They are often surprised when they are a victim of dirty tricks, for want of a better word. If someone has been negotiating with them and does something different or fails to deliver, they're shocked. Like that's not how it works in India. It's always open. Yeah, they fight and argue, full on at it, but it's open and it's honest. So I think what you've actually got as a cultural change, this is one for the Australians. If you haven't dealt with Indians before, just recognise that they're different and that we need to learn a bit more about them. But you'll find that they're actually, in general, quite a good culture to work with from a negotiating. And look, I've had ongoing friendships with a lot of my buyers and sellers who are Indians. It's great. The mix of people that I get to talk with and learn from is just dramatically increasing. What's actually ironic is one of the biggest fears for Indians is to be ripped off. So they actually tend to be quite cautious. So they do a little bit more due diligence at the front end of deal rather than at the signing of the deal and afterwards. They like to make sure that they know what they're walking into. So when they do sign the contract, it generally proceeds and goes accordingly. So if I wrapped it up, the things that I learned is recognise the size of scale. There's a lot of Indians as there is a lot of Chinese, way more than there are Australians. I mean, I call myself an Australian, this is where my heart is, but I was actually born in a country that doesn't even exist anymore. So the whole gamut of populations coming into Australia is amazing. It makes us diverse, it makes us really multicultural. We're actually the 5th largest location for Chinese people, and that's China being the main one. So we're in the top 4. We're a country that definitely accepts a lot of people coming through, and we've got a rising Arabic influence coming through in Australia the last 5 or 10 years. So it all just adds to it. I love kebabs and once again, what can you bring to the dinner table, and away we go. So if you looked at things to learn, recognise scale is one of them. Speed, push versus being obnoxious like me, and recognise that Indians have families, so they will involve them in the negotiations, and just be aware of those first initial offers to run with. Make sure you're not in the 30% mark, look closer to about 15%. And I think that the final quote that I've got, for those who are still struggling, be it Indian or be it Australian, in negotiations with cross cultures, is remember the line from Abraham Lincoln. I don't like that person, so I think I'm going to have to get to know them better. All right, hope you enjoy this. Leave me some comments on your experiences with cultural changes, and take care and God bless.